You know, it's fun. I find myself thinking a lot about how these brilliant minds way back when were grappling with some of the same big questions we're still asking today.
Yeah.
And you start to wonder if maybe they figured out some stuff,
Mhm.
some truly profound insights, maybe even some frameworks that we could apply to
Right.
our own complex world right now.
Hmm.
It's kind of like their intellectual journeys could have something to teach us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not just about dusty history books, is it?
Right.
It's about really engaging with their thought processes, trying to understand how they viewed things,
Exactly.
and maybe uncovering some of those timeless truths
Yeah.
using, well, all the incredible tools we have available to us today.
Right. That's what I'm so excited about.
Both the kind of the time-tested methods of scholarship, the cutting-edge power of things like AI.
It's like we can decode some of the most significant ancient texts.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean like hidden messages or anything like that, but I'm talking about the foundational logic, the mathematical underpinnings, the astronomical models they were building, the philosophical arguments that they meticulously developed.
Right.
Like all of that shaped how we understand ourselves and the universe around us.
Absolutely.
And that's where our unique approach comes in with this deep dive. We're partnering with AI.
Yeah.
You could think of it kind of like AI as a highly skilled research assistant, helping us sift through all of this knowledge, identify patterns
Right.
that maybe we just wouldn't see otherwise with the naked eye,
Yeah.
and even navigate those nuances of ancient languages.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a bit like digital archaeology,
Yeah.
where these algorithms are helping us map out the intellectual landscape
Right.
so we can unearth all of this incredible ingenuity of the past.
Well, and it's the synergy, isn't it,
Yeah.
between human intuition and the computational power of AI.
Yes.
AI can process these massive amounts of data and identify correlations that we as humans, with our limited capacity might just completely miss.
Yeah.
But it's the human element, right?
Yeah.
It's that understanding of historical context, that
Yeah.
ability to interpret those subtle nuances, and the capacity for, creative leaps.
Exactly.
That really brings these insights to light.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And, my own journey into this area has been kind of a winding path, which I think makes this exploration even more exciting for me personally.
Yeah.
By day, I'm an engineer.
Right.
I'm deep in the world of applied AI. I spend my time kind of wrestling with complex systems, analyzing mountains of data,
Yeah.
trying to stay ahead of the curve in a field that's just constantly evolving.
Absolutely.
And that gives me this real appreciation for structured thinking and the potential of computational tools.
Right.
But alongside that very modern focus I've always been drawn to the past,
Yeah.
for over 8 years, I formally studied Sanskrit,
Mhm.
that beautiful and incredibly precise language, right?
That was the primary vehicle for so much of ancient India's intellectual and scientific traditions.
Absolutely.
And I've dabbled in other languages too,
Yeah.
both old and new,
Yeah.
which has only deepened my fascination with how ideas travel
All right.
and transform and leave their mark on different cultures and different eras.
Across time, yeah.
It's really that blend of a technical mindset
Yeah.
and a deep kind of humanistic curiosity that fuels this whole deep dive for me.
That intersection is so powerful, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
your engineering background gives you that framework for understanding these complex systems, for
Sure.
identifying that underlying logic. And then the Sanskrit, allows you to engage with the original text
Yeah.
in such a nuanced way. That's quite a unique combination.
Thanks. And I'm so passionate about this because I believe that these ancient texts,
Yeah.
they hold so much wisdom. They have unique perspectives on fundamental questions.
And innovative ways of thinking that I think we risk losing touch with.
Absolutely.
And these ideas, they're often kind of locked away,
Yeah.
Hidden behind these challenges of archaic languages and dense conceptual frameworks, or even just the sheer volume of material that's out there.
Oh, yeah.
So my personal mission with this is to respectfully try to bridge that gap,
Yeah.
and using AI as that sophisticated research assistant to navigate those complexities, focusing on clear communication and hopefully engaging storytelling
Right.
to distill these profound ideas into narratives that are accessible
Yeah.
and thought-provoking for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that we're not just trying to create, a catalog of ancient achievements.
Right.
It's about understanding how these ancient minds approach problems.
Yes.
What questions were they even asking?
Exactly.
How did they construct their understanding of reality? And why might their intellectual code still be relevant to us today?
I love that.
In ways that are both obvious and maybe a little more subtle?
It's not about blindly accepting everything from the past either, right?
Of course not. No.
Yeah.
It's about engaging critically with these ideas.
Yes.
Understanding the context in which they emerged and seeing, what resonates with us today
Right.
and what might challenge our modern perspectives.
Yeah,
It's a dialogue across millennia.
it really is. Which brings us to today's focus.
Okay.
We are going to journey back to the 5th century CE
Right?
to encounter a truly extraordinary individual,
Okay.
Aryabhata,
Aryabhata.
a brilliant mathematician and astronomer who lived during what's often celebrated as India's intellectual golden age.
Yeah.
And you might have come across his name, in a textbook or something.
Briefly, yeah.
But we're going to go way deeper than that.
Okay.
Our primary guide for this exploration is going to be his remarkable work, the Aryabhatiya. Incredibly concise work.
Yeah.
And through its verses, we'll uncover some truly astonishing ideas. I mean, for instance, his calculation of pi was remarkably accurate for his time.
Wow.
He also developed an elegant and quite sophisticated model for predicting planetary movements,
Right.
using what are known as epicycles.
Okay.
And perhaps most revolutionary,
Yeah.
and certainly controversial in his era, was his strong argument for a spherical Earth
Okay.
that rotates on its own axis.
Interesting.
And he even formulated this powerful mathematical algorithm called the pulverizer, or the kukara in Sanskrit,
Okay.
which is a method for solving certain types of equations. That actually has some surprising parallels in modern cryptography.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I mean, Aryabhata's work wasn't just a collection of observations.
Right.
It was a brilliant synthesis of existing knowledge,
Yeah.
a critical refinement of those ideas, and then a bold leap forward,
Yeah.
demonstrating a scientific mindset
Right.
that feels remarkably contemporary even to us today.
Wow.
So we'll be exploring what made his work so groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And how it influenced scientific development for centuries to come.
It's incredible to think about the impact he had.
Yeah.
And it's not just the individual discoveries that are so impressive.
Right.
It's the way that his work is all interconnected. His mathematical innovations were directly applied to his astronomical models.
Yes.
It shows this really holistic understanding of the cosmos.
Absolutely. And, it's important to remember as we go through this, this deep dive is really about the process of discovery. We're not here to, make pronouncements or claim any kind of absolute truths.
Right.
Artificial intelligence is a powerful tool
Yeah.
that helps us explore this material, allows us to process a lot of information
Right.
and see those connections that we might miss otherwise.
Yeah.
But the crucial interpretation, the historical context, the human story behind these ideas, those come from careful study, a deep respect for these pioneers,
Yeah.
and a desire to make their brilliance understandable and relevant. Absolutely.
To you, the listener.
It's like AI acts as a lens
Yeah.
to help us focus on those key elements.
Right.
But it's our human understanding that really brings the meaning to it.
Exactly. A partnership.
Yeah.
So if you're captivated by how human thought has evolved over time, if you appreciate those hidden elegances within mathematical structures,
Yeah.
if you're drawn to humanity's quest to understand the universe,
Right.
or if you're just intrigued by the potential of modern technology to illuminate our past,
Yeah.
then Ancient Code, Modern Mind is definitely for you.
And Aryabhata is just a perfect figure to start with
He is.
because his work touches on so many of these fundamental areas.
It really does.
Yeah.
So before we dive into the verses of the Aryabhatiya in future explorations,
Okay.
I think it's helpful to have a basic understanding of how this work is structured.
Yeah.
It's remarkably compact.
Right.
It's organized into 4 main sections called padas.
Okay.
The first of these is the Dashagitika.
Dashagitika, which lays out the foundational cosmic principles of his entire system.
Okay.
It introduces this unique alphabetical system he uses to represent numbers,
Interesting.
and it presents the core astronomical parameters that were essential to his calculations, like the number of planetary revolutions within these huge cosmic time cycles.
So you can think of the Dashagitika as like setting the stage.
Yes.
Providing that essential vocabulary and those fundamental constants for the astronomical drama that unfolds in the later section.
Exactly. Then we have the second section, the Gachataba.
The Gajashabhata.
And here Aryabhata provides the essential mathematical toolkit that underpins his astronomical work.
Okay.
So this includes principles of arithmetic, basic algebra, key concepts of geometry,
Yeah.
his astonishingly accurate value for pi,
Yeah.
and the early development of trigonometry
Okay.
with the concept of the jai,
The jai.
which many of you might know is equivalent to our modern sine function.
Okay, so this is where he lays out the mathematical machinery
It is.
that allows him to make those precise calculations
Yes,
and build those incredible astronomical models.
exactly.
Yeah.
Then we move to the third section, the Kala Kriyapada.
The Kala Kriyapada.
This part focuses specifically on the reckoning of time.
Okay.
It defines these units of time ranging from the incredibly small, like the duration of a breath,
Wow.
all the way up to these vast cosmic epochs known as yugas.
Right, those huge cycles.
Yeah, and importantly, it also details the sophisticated methods that Aryabhata developed to calculate the positions of the planets using models that incorporated epicycles,
What?
which were essentially circles moving on other circles.
I see.
I mean, the Kala Kriyapada really shows his attempt to bring order and predictability
It does.
to the movements of celestial bodies
Right.
through these mathematical frameworks.
Yeah, fascinating.
And the fourth and final section is the Golapada.
The Golapad.
This section maps out the celestial sphere as Aryabhata understood it, explains the apparent motions of the planets as seen from Earth, provides his explanations for the causes of lunar and solar eclipses,
Right.
and perhaps most famously and daringly for his time,
Yeah.
it puts forward this radical idea
Okay.
that the Earth is a sphere and that it rotates on its own axis,
Oh, wow.
causing the apparent daily motion of the stars.
So the Golapada is where he presents his model of the cosmos,
Yes.
placing the Earth in motion, which was
Revolutionary.
absolutely revolutionary for his time.
Right, and as we go through these ideas in future episodes,
Okay.
we'll be relying a lot on the work of a later intellectual giant, the 7th century scholar Bhaskara.
Bhaskara. Okay.
His detailed commentary, or Bhattiya, on the Aryabhatiya
Yeah.
is absolutely crucial for us to fully understand Aryabhata's verses,
Right.
which are often very concise and sometimes quite cryptic.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Our understanding of Aryabhata today really owes a tremendous debt,
Yeah.
not just to Bhaskara, but to this entire lineage of scholars. Right.
Who preserved, translated, and interpreted this knowledge across the centuries. They're the reason we can even have this conversation today.
And it's a reminder that these ancient texts weren't, always readily available.
Right.
The work of these commentators was vital in keeping these ideas alive
Yeah.
and making them understandable for later generations.
Absolutely. But to really appreciate the revolutionary nature of Aryabhata's brilliance and the significance of his work,
Yeah.
we need to step back
Okay.
and consider the world that shaped him.
Right.
India in the 5th century CE during the reign of the Gupta Empire.
The Gupta Empire.
This period is often celebrated by historians as a true golden age.
Yeah.
This remarkable time when art, science, and philosophy flourished.
It was a time of great intellectual and artistic creativity, wasn't it?
It was imagined this vibrant, dynamic subcontinent just brimming with creative and intellectual energy. Imagine the courtyards of grand temples echoing with these complex philosophical debates.
Right. Maybe even exploring the very nature of logic and reality in ways that we might analyze with AI today.
Interesting.
Picture the walls of the Ajanta caves,
Yeah.
newly adorned with these vibrant and expressive murals,
Right.
depicting scenes from ancient stories and the everyday life of the time.
Fascinating.
Think of audiences captivated by the poetic and dramatic works of Kalidasa,
Kalidas.
a literary star who was actually a contemporary of Aryabhata.
Right.
And while all of this was happening on Earth, high above, the stars and planets beckoned,
Yeah.
and these keen observers were looking up,
Right.
not just with the lens of myth and legend, but with this growing desire to map the cosmos using the precise language of mathematics.
It was a society that really valued both intellectual and artistic pursuits, wasn't it?
It was.
It created an environment where these different fields of knowledge could interact and cross-pollinate.
Absolutely. And it was from this fertile ground,
Yeah.
an environment that enjoyed, a good degree of political stability. substantial economic prosperity, and this deep cultural reverence for intellectual curiosity that Aryabhata emerged.
It's almost as if he was destined to change how we understand the world.
He was, in many ways, a mind perfectly poised for that.
Yeah.
To fundamentally change how humanity understood both the world of numbers and the reality of the heavens.
The stability and prosperity of the Gupta Empire really provided the resources and the intellectual space for such an ambitious project.
Exactly. So let's touch upon the rise of this Gupta tapestry.
Okay.
The dynasty began around 320 CE in the historical region of Magadha, which is a significant part of modern-day Eastern India.
Okay.
And under these powerful and ambitious rulers, figures like Chandragupta I, the brilliant strategist Samudragupta, and Chandragupta II, also known as Vikramaditya, they unified this vast empire that stretched across much of northern and central India.
And that unification brought a period of relative peace, didn't it?
It did.
And it facilitated trade and communication across a wide area, which in turn fostered all of that intellectual exchange.
And that's so important for our story. That for almost 2 centuries, this empire provided a considerable degree of peace and effective governance. Of course, like any large empire, there were challenges. External pressures, occasional internal rivalries. But compared to a lot of other periods in history, it really fostered an environment where intellectual and artistic pursuits could flourish.
Absolutely.
And the stability was also underpinned by a lot of economic prosperity. You know, the Gupta realm was strategically located along vital trade routes. So it became this hub for the exchange of not only material goods, you know, we see evidence of this in the beautiful gold coins that have been discovered, but also, and this is crucial for us, for the exchange of ideas.
Flowing between East and West.
Exactly. The Gupta Empire was this conduit for knowledge.
It was.
Both within India and with the wider world. And at the heart of this empire lay the city of Pataliputra, which Aryabhata himself referred to as Kusumapura.
Kusumapris.
Meaning the city of flowers.
Oh, wow.
Imagine this bustling metropolis on the banks of the Ganges. You know, merchants from all corners would have thronged its markets. But equally important was this vibrant community of scholars. They gathered in academies, maybe within the precincts of temples, engaging in these intense debates, refining the rules of grammar, exploring the proofs of geometry, and working to unravel the dance of the planets in the night sky.
Pataliputra was a real melting pot of intellectual activity, wasn't it?
It was.
A place where scholars from all different disciplines could interact and challenge each other's ideas.
Exactly. And Gupta society was remarkably diverse.
It was.
Not a single monolithic entity. While Hinduism experienced a resurgence during this period, inspiring magnificent temple architecture and a great outpouring of Sanskrit literature, Buddhism also remained a vital intellectual and spiritual force. Think of the great monastic universities like Nalanda, which even back then in the 5th century CE was attracting students and scholars from across Asia, this renowned international center of learning.
Incredible.
And then we also have the Jain thinkers making significant contributions to math and philosophy, grappling with concepts like infinity and the very nature of atomism.
Ideas that still resonate with modern scientific inquiry.
They do this intellectual pluralism was key to the Gupta period, allowing for this rich cross-pollination of ideas between different traditions. This climate of tolerance and intellectual pluralism was crucial. You know, these traditions weren't just passively coexisting, they were actively interacting, influencing and enriching one another.
It was a dynamic exchange.
It was, and this exchange created the environment, the intellectual crucible, if you will, for a mind like Aryabhata's to emerge and flourish.
And it was a time of questioning, wasn't it?
It was.
Of seeking knowledge from various sources and of pushing the boundaries of existing understanding.
Absolutely. And it was into this dynamic world in the heart of Pataliputra that Aryabhata was born in 476 CE.
Okay.
Now, biographical details about his life are pretty scarce. What we know of him comes primarily through his work, the Aryabhatiya, and through the commentaries of later scholars. But that work composed around 499 CE, and he was only about 23 years old.
Wow.
Speaks volumes about the intellectual environment that nurtured his talent.
The fact that he produced such a groundbreaking work at such a young age,
I know, it's incredible,
is a testament to both his genius and the stimulating intellectual climate.
Exactly the depth of understanding and the breadth of knowledge.
Yeah, right.
And the Aryabhatiya suggests a rigorous and comprehensive education.
Right.
He was almost certainly deeply immersed in the mathematical and astronomical traditions of his time. This field known as Jyotia.
Jyotia.
And it's likely he studied under a guru.
Yeah.
And participated in those lively, scholarly discussions that were so common in Pataliputra, absorbing all that wisdom passed down through generations.
He would have been part of that vibrant community of scholars.
He would have.
Learning from their insights and building upon their work.
His work is remarkable for its synthesis of two seemingly distinct disciplines.
Yeah.
The logic of mathematics and the practice of astronomy.
And those two are deeply intertwined.
They are.
Yeah.
It's likely that he and his contemporaries used relatively simple tools like the gnomon.
The gnomon.
Or shuku in Sanskrit, which is basically a vertical rod used to track the movements of the sun and other celestial bodies.
Right, by observing its shadow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Through diligent observation using these tools, he would have been able to extract very precise data about the movements of the heavens.
It's amazing to think that these simple tools, combined with rigorous mathematical reasoning, allowed for such accurate astronomical calculations.
Interestingly, his name, Aryabhata, might suggest a respected status.
Right, perhaps a noble scholar?
But his work doesn't contain dedications to royal patrons, which were quite common in that era.
Yeah.
This absence might suggest that his work stemmed from this personal intellectual drive.
Right. A pure fascination with how things work.
Exactly. Rather than being commissioned by the court.
So his motivation seems to have been this thirst for knowledge.
Yes.
A desire to understand these fundamental principles governing the universe.
And this aligns with the broader intellectual ethos of the Gupta period, which showed a reverence for the cosmic order and this rational desire to understand it.
Yeah.
Through calculation and observation. So to sum it up, we have this incredible intellectual landscape, this golden age. We have this brilliant young mind, Aryabhata, who advanced the knowledge of his time.
Yeah.
And we have his legacy, the Aryabhatiya.
The Aryabhatiya.
This compact but comprehensive distillation of his understanding.
121 verses.
121 elegant verses.
Wow.
Organized into those four sections. The Dashagatika, the Gachatapada,
the Gachatapada,
the Kalakarpada,
the Kalakriyapada,
and the Golapada.
And the Golapada. Yeah.
And the genius of the Aryabhatiya lies not just in its synthesis of existing ideas and its groundbreaking new concepts, but also in its conciseness.
It's amazing how much he managed to pack into such a small space.
I know, it's incredible. Its structure in metrical verse not only aided in memorization.
Right, which was crucial back then.
Oh, absolutely.
Before the printing press.
Yeah.
To ensure that these ideas were transmitted and survived.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also provided this framework that was later amplified by commentators like Bhaskara.
Right.
So it's practical tools for calculation and prediction.
Yeah.
But also this profound vision of a universe governed by mathematical laws.
He really saw mathematics as the underlying language of the cosmos, didn't he?
He did.
A way to understand that hidden order of the universe.
Numbers weren't just abstract symbols for him. They were the keys to understanding reality.
And that's why his legacy continues to resonate today, isn't it?
It is.
He embodies that power of mathematical reasoning to unlock those secrets of the universe.
And his work contains the seeds of modern trigonometry, achieved these incredibly precise calculations, and presented this holistic approach, blending scientific inquiry with philosophical contemplation.
He set a high standard for scientific inquiry.
He did.
Emphasizing both observation and mathematical rigor.
This deep dive ancient code, modern mind, is really driven by a desire to make Aryabhata's universe more accessible. Just as his work aimed to distill the cosmos into these verses. And I hope to awaken in you that same sense of awe and wonder that drew me to his work.
I hope so too. It's a fascinating journey.
It is.
And we hope to show our listeners
Yeah.
why Aryabhata remains such a towering figure in the history of science and mathematics.
Absolutely. Someone whose insights continue to inspire us. And next time,
Yes.
we'll finally step inside the Aryabhatiya itself.
Okay.
Beginning our exploration with that first section,
Right.
the Aryabhatiya,
Aryabhatiya.
we'll encounter his opening invocation and delve into his method for encoding the universe into numbers.
Yeah.
You know, we can almost think of this as his own alphabet of the infinite.
Alphabet of the infinite. I like it.
How did he capture those cosmic scales and those intricate relationships in just a few carefully chosen syllables? Please join us.
Yeah. Join us as we begin to decode this ancient wisdom.